on this episode of the Modern Matriarch podcast. It's natural, it makes sense, because we are seeing in front of us what the potential could actually be, and we subconsciously start entertaining the idea, what if I didn't have to be working, let's not call it 9 to 5, let's call it all week, because that's what it really is. What if I didn't have to be working all week? What if I didn't have to be on call for my company? What if I didn't need to have a business that keeps me busy 24/7? What if I can sit there and nurse my little one just like I'm watching this woman on Instagram do? What if I can be pregnant and be blissful? What if I can find true security and safety under the wings of my husband? What if I have a cozy home with laughter and warm food on the table? What if I have all these skills that so many other women have neglected and forgotten? We think about those things because they're very real. They're wholesomely appealing to our hearts and to our souls. I'm Victoria, and you are listening to the Modern Matriarch podcast, a show about living unapologetically as a woman. Here we discuss the quiet things out loud without fear or political correctness. You deserve to feel alive deep in your soul through living authentically and finding deep fulfillment as a woman. You are listening to the first season of the Modern Matriarch podcast. In this episode, we dive into a topic that's sparking so much heated debate in today's modern culture, and that is the subject of the tradwife and why it's making a huge comeback in our culture today, and why so many women are choosing to pursue it after experiencing the modern lifestyle of the typical feminist movement. I'm excited to bring this discussion to the table without fear and without political correctness, and have a true conversation about why it's making such a big comeback and what are the reasons behind it. My hope is that this episode inspires meaningful reflection and deep thought and conversation. I hope we can all think about what it means to find fulfillment as a woman in today's modern culture. So ladies, the traditional wife, the trad wife, is making a huge and unapologetic comeback all over the world, and you can see it happen in front of your eyes all over social media. Many of those accounts have millions and thousands of followers and a lot of engagement, and there's a lot going on, and that clearly shows the appeal and that it's making a huge comeback in today's modern culture. We'll be discussing feminism that ties directly into the tradwife conversation, and I have a dedicated episode earlier in this season, the 12 ways how modern feminism is hurting women, and I highly encourage you to listen to that. It dives deeper into the subject, and it ties in directly with what we'll be discussing today, why the traditional wife, the trad wife, is making a comeback, and I think you'll find a lot of value there. If you are new to the topic of tradwife, or maybe you've bumped into it and formed quickly an opinion because someone else said so, let's just make it clear and keep it really simple without emotion what this phenomena of the tradwife is. A trad wife stands for a traditional wife. That means a woman who actively chooses to live a life that's based on tradition and based on gender roles, to have children, raise a family, take care of the household, and support her husband. That's the plain definition. But remember, when I say the plain definition, that's what it means. A woman who chooses to live this lifestyle. That's the new phenomena of a tradwife. So why do we see this rise of the tradwife in today's modern culture? That's question number one. And question number two, why do we see so much heated debate, and why are the feminists and the feminist movement so threatened by the tradwife movement we are seeing in our younger generation? Could it be because the charade and the lies of modern feminism is busted and it's barely hanging on by a thread? Could that be the reason? Are there other reasons? Let's explore this together. So the modern feminist movement is sold to us and has been sold to us as an idea of freedom and equality. For women, the right to choose to live freely. That's how it's sold. No longer being shackled, telling us that family is going to hold us back and children are going to end your life, and being barefoot and pregnant and the old ball and chain. Your life is going to be over. You don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to take care of your family anymore. You don't have to cook anything or even know how to do that. You can go ahead and build yourself a career and have the freedom. You can do whatever it is that you want. That was the idea that was sold to us. The modern feminist movement now is very threatened by the concept of the tradwife, which is very interesting. Because if the modern feminist movement was all about telling women that they have the right to live and they should fight for their freedom and equality and get to live in whichever way they choose to live, we're not talking about forcing here due to archaic traditions and things that have gone wrong in the past. That's not what we're talking about. Actively choosing and making the decision to be a tradwife, to have children, to raise the young, to take care of the household, to have a ton of human skills, supporting your husband and building a family. If a woman chooses that, is that where feminism ends? So is feminism truly about freedom? Or is feminism about making sure that women stay in a certain lane? And if they don't agree with that lane, of not getting married, not having children, they have to stay in that lane. Make sure you have a career, maybe have a couple of pets. If they don't stay in that lane, now that's not okay, even if they chose that life. Is this movement truly about women? If the feminist movement was true, and if the people who tout it and stomp for it and believe in it and protest for it and run around naked with their naked bodies all over the place, claiming this is all about women and all the things we are fighting for women's rights and independence and voices, wouldn't they also fight for the woman's right to do whatever she pleases instead of tearing her down and attacking her like we're seeing today on some social media accounts? Who is driving that? How have we women become so supposedly passionate about women that when they choose a life that's not aligned with what you are doing, that we are attacking her and telling her to leave her family and divorce her husband? That's what's happening to a family called Ballerina Farm, who has millions of followers on Instagram and even on YouTube. We don't know their private life. We can't assume anything. None of us can. Social media shows a fraction of our lives, but that's not the point. The point is that this woman chose to live a life with traditional values and raise her children and have one after the other because that's what she wants. That's where she finds her fulfillment. But the feminist movement that cares supposedly so much about women are telling her to leave her family, divorce her husband, and she must be miserable, and making all the assumptions simply because how an article was written or how an interview was conducted, and trying to read between the lines and making decisions on what kind of life that she lives. The feminist movement is a lie. The feminist movement has turned women against each other and against ourselves and our sabotaging relationships, sabotaging our future, and sabotaging the future of humanity. It's evident, because if this was righteous and if this is truly about caring for women's rights, every type of choice would be absolutely celebrated. We'll get right back to the show, but first I want to share with you something that has been a game changer in my life: ancestral supplements. I've relied on these amazing, real and whole food supplements throughout my fertility journey, through pregnancy, recovering in postpartum, and now breastfeeding my baby. When all the many common supplements failed me, real, whole food, powerful supplements changed everything for the better. These supplements are pure and wholesome nutrition, real food that supports all of our seasons of life, just like it did for our ancestors. I've quit almost all other supplements with exception to a wholesome organic vitamin C in favor of ancestral powerful supplements. I believe in them with my whole heart and I can't recommend them enough. You'll find links to my personal favorites in the show notes of this episode, and you can see which ones will support your current season of life. And now, back to the show. It's kind of funny because when I learned about Ballerina Farm and I heard what's going on there and how women are attacking her, I had to go see for myself what this is about. I didn't even realize that I was actually following on social media what I now can call the tradwife type of woman, because it's naturally where I am in my life and what inspires me. Being a first-time mama and so much more that you probably know about me from listening to this podcast. And I went to see more about it. What's going on? I wanted to learn more. Why are women behaving this way? Why are women calling for violence on her husband? Why are they attacking her? Why they are assuming about her life? So I found an interview where somebody interviewed the reporter or the interviewer that went to meet with Hannah from the Ballerina Farm in her home and interviewed her for some kind of a publication which sparked this massive outrage. And in the interview, she actually admitted that the interviewer admitted that the reason why she brought the picture to light in the way she did is because she came in with a bias, because she feels, even she herself admitted, that the trad wife and that whole concept and lifestyle is really appealing to women. And she is threatened by it because she feels that the trad wife lifestyle is going to endanger and sabotage the feminist movement. That's how far this has gone. That even she herself openly admits that she not only sees, even herself felt that it was attractive and is attractive to see the trad wife lifestyle, but she also knows that this lifestyle is threatening the narrative that the feminist movement wants to put women in their box, and you cannot step out of line. And if you do, you will get attacked. You'll get written about articles that are untrue. You'll have interviews that only parts of them are shared so you can be put in a bad light. It's kind of crazy because I'm actually recalling my own experience because, you know, my entire story with me being sexually abused as a child and everything that happened after that, I actually brought the perpetrator to justice, and it was a long story. We had a trial and all of that transpired. And after the trial ended and was actually before sentencing, there were many reporters trying to interview me and ask me questions. And I was actually warned by a close friend of mine, be careful what you say to the media and those that interview you, because they're not all good people. They're going to interview you, but they're going to choose the pieces that they feel they want to share, what's going to attract clicks, and what people are going to want to hear, what they think they're going to want to hear. They're going to want to bring the drama. And you will be lucky if anyone will share the truth of what you actually said. And I was innocent and naive, and I thought, how bad can this really be? And I was interviewed by the media locally. And a few publications that actually ended up writing about my story, they completely twisted my story by simply leaving out the important things that I said and only wrote the things that made me look like all I care about was revenge. They left out the pain, the hurt, the abuse, the details, how my whole family was hurt in the process, how I was obviously hurt in the process. They just kept those pieces that turned me into this completely different person than who I actually am. So when I listened to that story with that interviewer who interviewed Hannah from Ballerina Farm, it just brought back these memories. And I just closed my eyes and I felt so bad. And I put myself in her shoes and I can empathize because she innocently opened her home to someone that pretended that they're going to share her story and her family and what she's doing. We don't know the reason why she agreed to it. Maybe she wants to inspire other women, other families, or maybe she just wants to share about her life. Innocently shared her story. And there came an interviewer with an agenda to completely wreck her story and completely change the narrative and the message she published to millions of people around the world. Not only that, but to proudly be interviewed and tell others how not only does she find it appealing, but she also feels it's going to threaten the feminist movement because women are going to see the truth and they're going to get out of the box and out of the rules how you're supposed to walk the line of feminism to their tune. So why is the tradwife lifestyle causing so much buzz? And why are so many women glued to the content and can't stop watching and can't stop listening and are hungry for more? Because the tradwife movement and that lifestyle is appealing to us women. It appeals to our deep need to nurture, our deep need to have a safe nest for our offspring, our deep need to feel secure in our home and protected. And no feminist movement and no rules and boundaries can stop women from wanting to look and wanting to see and indulging in just imagining and feeling as if we can have that. There's no way we can hold that back. The fact that so many millions of women are following this and are attracted to this is because it's attractive. It is soothing. I've actually, if I'm not mistaken, even heard that interviewer say, us women, we come home from stressful jobs and, we just had to deal with all these things at work because, we want to be in the workforce. That's the whole other topic we talked about on the other podcast. We come home from all that stress and then we sit down and we open Instagram and you see Hannah from Ballerina Farm carrying a little toddler, whipping up a delicious meal. Kids are running around. There's fresh food on the table. House is cozy. It feels good. It's feel-good content. She even admitted it herself. And this is what's happening to so many women around the world. We are so tired of the lies we've been told that even if we think we're still feminists, and even if we think that, we're still fighting for women's rights and this feminist movement is doing us so good, we come home from the feminist life, or we just scroll while we're at work and we're seeing this content of the tradwife, and we're like, that just feels so good. That feels so soothing. That feels like the kind of busyness and the kind of, not stress, but the kind of burden, or whatever you want to call it, the kind of responsibility, let's just call it that, the kind of responsibility that you're witnessing when you're watching these women feels so naturally soothing. And there's this contradiction in our minds, right? Like, oh, women independence, career, all these things are going on. But in the same time, we cannot help ourselves and want to consume this content. Shouldn't we ask ourselves about this conflict? Why do we feel this way, instead of attacking her when someone else says that we should do that? We're quietly indulging in this feel-good experience, but then, the media told us, somebody said, don't feel good about this. Her husband is abusing her. It must be because she has so many kids. And now let's make all these assumptions without realizing the agenda of the interviewer. She wanted to sabotage her because her lifestyle is threatening what she believes in a narrative that she's been spouting and spewing for so many years. What are we doing, ladies? What are we doing here? Let's be truthful. Let's take a breather. Let's not allow the emotions to cloud our minds. Let's look at it realistically. This is not about saying that every woman's life, that every relationship is perfect. Why are we just focusing on her because she chooses to live a life that's more traditional with children? If you want to save every woman from every abusive relationship, there are plenty of women that are not living the tradwife life, and they are working and they have a cat and they never think about having children, who are actually being abused in their relationships. And there are also women who are abusing the men in their relationships. Is this really about saving women? Let's not be so emotional, and let's not be whipped around like grasses in the wind because somebody said something. Let's look at everything realistically, and let's check our hearts. Why we feel the way that we feel. We have been sold a lie. We have been told through the feminist movement that we should put the career over family. That's what gives us freedom, and that's where we'll find our freedom, and we'll feel so good, and we'll be able to do this and do that. Only to years later consistently find ourselves to lack deep fulfillment, deep happiness, because we are neglecting the very need to nurture. This is why this is happening. When we witness other women nurturing, and the way they feel, how relaxing it feels, it automatically shakes something in us, sparks something in us that we just can't resist. It's natural. It makes sense because we are seeing in front of us what the potential could actually be. And we subconsciously start entertaining the idea, what if I didn't have to be working? Let's not call it 9 to 5. Let's call it all week, because that's what it really is. What if I didn't have to be working all week? What if I didn't have to be on call for my company? What if I didn't need to have a business that keeps me busy 24/7 and constantly trying to manage my team and doing all these things? What if that wasn't my priority on life? What if I just do that when I want to, and it feels good to my soul, and when it resonates with my being? What if I can sit there and nurse my little one just like I'm watching this woman on Instagram do? What if I can be pregnant and be blissful? What if I can find true security and safety under the wings of my husband? What if I have a cozy home with laughter and warm food on the table? What if I have all these skills that so many other women have neglected and forgotten? We think about those things because they're very real. They're wholesomely appealing to our hearts and to our souls. Many of us are finally seeing the truth, and this is where the tradwife movement came about to be, because we are recognizing the lack of deep fulfillment and the spiritual life of nurture and living truly fulfilled as a woman. Many of us are realizing that fulfillment, long-term deep fulfillment, is not found in our paycheck, in our bank accounts. It's not found in competition, in the next venture, and in the next idea. It's first found when we first deeply fulfill our needs as nurturers. This is where we feel wholesome. This is our natural position. Men are built for healthy competition, and they actually handle it wonderfully. You can see it in nature. Men compete to win their mates. Women sit back and watch and choose. Men compete with each other. Men have a healthy relationship with competition because that is natural to them. We women, our primary need is nurture. And men's primary need is to provide and protect us and provide a safe nest for our young ones so we can nurture them in peace. Whether we want to scream up and down and we want to pretend that we can do all these different things, yes, sure you can. You can travel again and again. You can do another fashion haul. You can go out to party again. But after some years, it gets very old, very lonely, full of regret, and very often irreversible. Of course, my words alone can spark a huge glitch in our minds. If you're listening and this makes you mad because you think I'm trying to put you in a box and tell you to have 12 children and never leave the home and never make a dime yourself and listen to your husband when he tells you what to do, you have the wrong idea and you have been brainwashed to believe that this is what it's about. No, this is our absolute choice as women to be truthful with ourselves and what we need and allow ourselves to indulge in our natural needs as women and allow ourselves to decide spiritually what we need and how we find fulfillment. If it's not having a family, sure, you tell yourself that. This is your story that you have to live with. But at least don't allow a narrative to manipulate you and for you to think that you may not have regrets down the road. I thought I won't have regrets, but I did, and I'm glad I caught myself in time. I was the one that was so focused on what I wanted to do and how many places I can travel to and how many dogs I can take care of. Sure, I found short fulfillment in so many pieces of my life, but nothing, absolutely nothing, has compared to the fulfillment I am finding in becoming a mama, in focusing inwards and letting go, in becoming a modern matriarch, essentially a tradwife, and going more and more in that direction, owning up to the mistakes I've made, making amends where I still can, and being truthful, and allowing myself, indulging myself in the opportunity to explore what fulfills me as a woman. One of the big wake-up calls I had was obviously my age, because almost every woman that I've talked to, you've heard the typical, the clock starts ticking, and sometimes your family will remind you, but sometimes in your own mind you wonder, what if? Will I regret this later? That happened to me too, and nothing became more important than becoming a mama at that point. Nothing became more important. I couldn't focus on anything else. All I wanted is to become pregnant and get to be a mama. And the other thing that I pictured besides the biological clock ticking, the typical word that so many women use, and it's used for us and sometimes against us, it doesn't matter, whichever perspective you want to have here. I pictured my life. I suddenly had just these forward flashes and thinking of me being in my 60s where my mother is now, with my husband that I love, in an empty home. We've traveled the world, we've had dogs, We've done all those things. Now what? And I started remembering my grandmother and how we used to go visit her and the joy on her face and how much we loved to spend time with her. Both of our grandmothers, both of our grandfathers. And that was around their age, in their 60s. And how much natural joy and ease and happiness and comfort I felt in my childhood from that, and how precious that was, and how meaningful that was. And suddenly, my career and business decisions and life that I chose at that forward flashing age of in my 60s meant absolutely nothing. All the countries I've been to and all the life experiences I've gathered had literally no meaning. Because later on in life, when we live these wiser and older years, we start seeing the mistakes that we've made. And I didn't want to be in that position. Of course, we can't make sure that our life is absolutely perfect, but we can strive and think ahead how things are going to feel. Sure, you can go out party and wear a little skimpy dress and have fun and get drunk and you think that makes you feel good. But do you think you're going to do that when in your 60s? Or even in your 50s, do you think you'll have the appeal to this lifestyle when you're even in your 40s? I can tell you I have zero to that. Not just now in my early 40s and as a new mama, but way before that. If we are truthful to ourselves and we think ahead and we imagine the future, we know what will have been worth it. We understand where we're going to feel like life was worth it. And I immediately knew that at that age, I'm going to want to love on my children and maybe grandchildren. Hopefully, I'll still see my grandchildren. I'm going to want to give love and share love and have an open, warm home to my family. The thought of my husband and I just getting older and living those years alone and leaving nothing behind without purpose was terrifying. I wanted my life and my amazing husband's life to have more meaning, to carry a legacy, to give something to the world that's greater than myself. And that's how I began my own change of heart. It didn't take much because it's so natural to us women. But unfortunately, in our society, we don't see children. It's not common anymore. Think about it. Think you're walking the streets, you're running your errands. How common is it that you see pregnant mamas? How common is it that you see families together? It's becoming more and more rare. Heck, you'll see so many dogs. And to every 50 dogs, you'll see maybe 2 children. And you can go, depending where you live, months or years without ever seeing a pregnant woman. We are not surrounded anymore by true human living, by true human life. And that's one of the reasons why we don't even understand what we're missing. So when we see that online, when we see that play right in front of our eyes, something shifts and we can't look away. For us women to indulge in the idea and to think about the tradwife lifestyle means to relearn and to know so many skills and so many ways of life that feel so good to us. It means to relearn how to cook. It means to relearn how to keep a household. It means to be home surrounded with our children who love us unconditionally. It means to raise them ourselves. It means to have a cozy and warm home. It also means the safety and security of a loving husband in a safe and monogamous relationship. It means to live a life committed in a beautiful relationship that's dedicated to raising our children. It means to be able to bake again. It means to be able to focus on our children's abilities and growth and to nurture them and see them grow into mature and healthy adults. It means pregnancy. It means understanding what it's like to carry a life and bring a life into this world. It means doing it with your husband, with the one that you choose to do this together. It means the sacred connection and the deep love and the intimate relationship that you build together. It's a greater purpose than just ourselves. It feels so good. The tradwife, the mother, the modern matriarch, is able to utilize her skills of multitasking with so much purpose and so much elegance. It's so powerful. It's beautiful to see. And it's stunning to experience. Even myself, I've not even reached the potential and where we actually want to go as a family just yet. But I have to say that since our baby girl was born, my ability to multitask, and I thought I was good at this before, but my ability to multitask has grown 100-fold. It's amazing. Not just what I'm capable of, but what I enjoy being capable of just by becoming a mama and building a family with my amazing husband. That's another thing too. My husband absolutely deserved to become a father and have a family. It's not just about ourselves. Let's not leave our amazing men out of the picture here. Our men thrive in their role of being able to have the honor to provide and take care of their families. This is what makes them tick and thrive, just like we are able to multitask and just like how we love our little ones and take care of them and nurse them and watch over their every need. And how it makes us feel so good to see it and so good to experience it. The same goes for our men. There's nothing more amazing for a man than to see and witness his family thrive because of his decisions and what he's bringing to the table and how he is building this with this love of his life together as a family. There is so much we have to undo and so much that we should care about our men, to give them again the space to be who they actually are so they too can thrive. And that's another really important aspect of the life that women choose as a tradwife, because they love their husbands. They want to see them fulfilled and they want to see them thrive, and they feel their husbands deserve to be fathers. The amount of smiles that I see from my amazing husband just naturally come out since our baby girl was born has been so profound and has been so multiplied since we became parents. He absolutely deserved to be a father. This is not just about ourselves. That's the beauty of being parents. That's the beauty of being a mother and being a wife, is that you understand the pleasure of living life in nurturing and in caring for others. Because just paying attention to ourselves and just focusing on me gets old and it's not fulfilling after all. The feminist way of life that's been sold to us for so many years ends up being a place of darkness, confusion, depression. It's covered in glitter and unicorns, and on the outside it seems so glamorous. Oh, Miss Independent, I can do whatever I want. I can sleep with whoever I want. But in the end, it's dark, it's unfulfilling, and it's often accompanied by a large dose of alcohol or drugs. We all know that. We don't talk about it, but alcohol is one of the biggest commodities in the world. I can tell you, I don't need a drop of alcohol. My life feels so amazing and so fulfilled by being a mother, and I don't even care to have even a drop of alcohol, not only because I don't need it, but because I care for my baby girl who I'm breastfeeding, and I would never take any chances to jeopardize her health. Again, my life greater than just my own purpose. It's funny because when you go on a diet, I'm going off on a tangent here, but when we try all these different diets because we want to lose weight, me, I want to look good, it's all about myself, it's easy to stray. It's easy to cheat on that diet because it's just for ourselves. But when our life becomes greater than just ourselves, when we know that something can harm our children, our babies, our very own offspring, it's easy to stick to what we decide and to stick to our values, because now life is greater than just ourselves. So how has feminism and how have so many women bought this narrative of fighting for our freedom and to have our independence? How did we get here? Because feminism is still holding on to this idea and has been touting this idea about the patriarchy and how it comes from religion and cult-like behaviors and cult-like abuse. And they want to make it seem like it still has anything to do with that. I was raised in a cult-like community. I was raised in extreme religion. We'll get right back to the show. But first, I want to share something close to my heart. As a new mama, my passion lies in creating a life filled with family, fulfillment, and the freedom to pursue my dreams. More than ever, having diverse income streams is essential, especially as we navigate the beautiful journey of motherhood and family. Building a flexible business that aligns with my values has been a true blessing. It allows me to prioritize my family and put in as much as I can in my available time. I've seen firsthand how this business has transformed not just my life, but the lives of so many others who yearn for that same balance. If you're curious about how I'm designing a life that enables me to be fully present with my loved ones while generating income from home, I would love to hear from you. Follow the link in the show notes to reach out, and let's explore how we can create your version of freedom together. And now, back to the show. And yes, there were so many wrong things. It would take a whole dedicated podcast just to talk about the cult-like life that I was raised in. But I can also tell you, I shouldn't have thrown out the baby with the bathwater, because in the same time where things were so awful because I was actually abused, sexually abused, and women were actually placed backwards, they didn't have a voice, at least not as much as men did. There were so many problems, but there were also amazing traditions and warmth and family and things that I'm bringing back into my life now, the good, because we don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I will keep saying it on this podcast because this is what's happening to our culture. We have gone wrong in the past, that's for sure. Not all of it, some of it, and some parts of the world, and some cultures and some traditions. But that doesn't mean that all of it was wrong. We don't have to swing from one extreme to the other. We should be able to dissect and find the good and bring the good with us and build something new from it, add good to it. Instead of putting ourselves in a position where we are resorting to alcohol, drugs, depression, a life of focusing on therapy and self-love, and we just don't know what to do with ourselves anymore. It's a culture of being triggered and everyone is just on the edge of their emotions. This comes from somewhere. This comes from a lack of fulfillment. It comes from a lack of our traditions, a lack of living as a human being and bringing the good from the past into our life today. My mother was a queen of her household, 8 children, always warm and delicious, healthy food on the table, always taking care of every child's needs, knew natural remedies, didn't run to the doctor for everything, didn't look on TikTok on how to raise her children. She was amazing at what she did as a woman and as a mother. And her love and her care carries me through my life today. Her skills is something I am after. I'm asking for so much advice from my mother, and she looks back at her childhood and how her mother raised her. We're losing so much generational wisdom because we've abandoned all of that. But we don't have to. There's still a chance, there's still opportunity to reach back out to our parents, to ask them about their life and how they were raised, and if they remember their grandparents. If your grandparents are still alive, have conversations with them. Ask them about their childhood, their traditions, and how family was like. That's where a lot of the answers are. And this is what I'm hoping to bring back into my life. This is because we don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. It's not about going back and having 20 kids without birth control or being forced to be a certain way or not having rights. This is not about that. This is about making the conscious choice to lean into our spirituality and lean into our needs as women and asking ourselves, why are we not feeling fulfilled as women, even though we should be with all these modern feminist advancements? That's what we have to talk about today. The modern woman today is silently longing for a life of nurture and deep fulfillment. And so many women don't even know what that means. So many women don't even understand why they're in anguish. So yes, when they see snippets and visuals of those things that feel so good, it's so natural for it to be appealing to our mind and our subconscious that we can't help ourselves and we just want to consume and see more of it because that is what we really want. But so much of it feels so far-fetched when we put ourselves in those shoes and we imagine living a life like that. Women are tired of not knowing what pregnancy is like, if they can still have children at their later age in life. Women that are already mothers and are in the workforce because that's what modern feminism has gifted us. Those mamas are at work crying and wishing that they can be there for their babies instead of sending them into strangers' hands to be raised. Women are waking up today. Mamas are waking up today. And it begins with questioning why we feel the way we do. And then it continues with really leaning in to what fulfills us and start heading in that direction. So does this mean that the only way to happiness is to literally change your life from today to tomorrow? Or if that's what I should do, from working to suddenly being a tradwife to dropping everything, and this is the only place where you can be happy? Does that mean that my husband is forcing me to do that? Do I need rescuing like Hannah from Ballerina Farm? Is that where we're going? Should we not have women's rights for anything? That's not what the conversation is about. It doesn't mean anything. It means that you can choose what you want. It means that you can be open to the life that you want to live. It means that we respect other women in the choices that they make, especially if it doesn't align with yours. Personally, it makes no difference to me the life that you choose to live. If you want to be a mother and experience the joy of motherhood, you want to be a tradwife, or you want to marry your best friend, your husband, this is really your decision. It doesn't impact my personal life one way or another. But I know one thing, that we can't vilify and demonize other women because they choose to live a traditional life that's against the grain of today's pop culture. The popular thing to say today, hey, I have pets and I'm never gonna have kids. I have cats and I wanna live free. I wanna be single for the rest of my life. That's the narrative that's celebrated. And if you say that, good for you. You go live the life of freedom. We also need to give the same celebration to the mother and the woman that chooses, and the husband and the man who chooses to live differently, who chooses tradition, who chooses gender roles, who chooses making up a household, who chooses to raise children and have a family. That is their choice. And so many of these types of families actually come from a more of a modern lifestyle, myself included. There are plenty of couples today that come from the city living and have lived the partying time, never thought about having children, and in the recent years, for so many reasons, chose to do something completely differently. And now they even have a small farm and live together with their husbands and homeschool their children. We're seeing all of that. This should not be vilified. You should understand that that choice comes after living the modern lifestyle. And there are so many reasons for that we covered on this episode today. Many mamas like myself today are choosing to create a blend, to have a balance between raising our children, being at home with them. We choose to maybe have a small business that we don't have to worry about, that we need to support our families to the extent of living the corporate lifestyle. We kind of sink into our roles as nurturers deeper, and we do more of that. Some women go all the way, which I absolutely love too, where they pursue a life of fully traditional mamahood, and they like raising their families. I love that also. And if you want to continue living this life the way you do, and it feels good to your soul, and you do it because it's your decision, I celebrate you too. This is really up to you what you do. But I want you to know that this doesn't have to be extreme. Just because you're entertaining the idea and you're attracted to what you're seeing on social media when it comes to the tradwife movement, if this feels good to you, don't be intimidated that you have to go literally from living an urban city-like lifestyle, and maybe you're single today and you haven't found the love of your life yet, to pursuing tomorrow being a tradwife. You can take it in steps. You can take it in strides. You can align your life and shift your goals and shift your surroundings and who you are surrounding yourself with to lean in that direction. This is not about an all or nothing. This is about finding what feels good to your soul and what gives you fulfillment and what you will feel if you think about your golden years in your life will feel worth it. What feels good to your spirit? What feels like a warm comfort, like a hug? What feels good to your soul? That's where the answer is. And we can all begin shifting in that direction to what feels good to our hearts and good to our purpose. The subject of the tradwife is so appealing, and it's growing in popularity so much because so many of us women are finally seeing that motherhood, being a wife, living a simple life in nature, growing our own food, and being deeply human, this is where fulfillment is. This is where we find our peace. I don't think this trend is going to end, and I look forward to watching it grow. It's so wholesome. It fuels me. It makes me change my mind. It makes me have different perspectives. And it makes me have so much respect to every woman and every man and every family that chooses to pursue a life that's aligned with their spirit and aligned with finding deep fulfillment long-term in life. With this episode, I wrap up the first season of the Modern Matriarch podcast. To stay true to my values and what I talk about here on this podcast, I decided to make this podcast differently than anything else I've done in my life. I'm choosing my family, my husband, and my baby girl, and the future of my family over anything else as a priority. I'm making my family the number one in my life, and this is why I'm taking a break, and I will be doing the Modern Matriarch podcast in seasons. We'll be taking a break for the holidays. We'll be taking time off, enjoy our family, be with our little daughter, enjoy life, focus inwards, focus on nurture, and plan the next season for you. I've thoroughly enjoyed bringing the first season of the Modern Matriarch podcast to you, and I cannot wait to reconnect with you on season 2. In the meantime, be sure you go check out our website, themodernmatriarch.co. Find plenty of resources there that I keep building and adding every day. And be sure you are subscribed so I can be in touch with you throughout the holidays, just to connect with you from a family standpoint. Thank you for joining us on season 1, and I cannot wait to reconnect with you on season 2. Do you want to take this show on the go with you? Whether you're relaxing at home or you're on the go, you can take the Modern Matriarch podcast wherever you are. Find us on all major platforms like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else. Just search for Modern Matriarch and join us anytime and anywhere. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Modern Matriarch podcast. Since you made it all the way to the end, I'd love to invite you to visit themodernmatriarch.co. This is where we're creating helpful and inspiring resources to help you along this incredible journey. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to subscribe to this podcast and leave us a like and a comment below this episode. Your support helps us reach more incredible women, brings more amazing guests to the show, and also helps us deliver fresh and inspiring content to you. We'll see you next time on the Modern Matriarch podcast.